had to do. But yeah, it's a really nice bright shade. So we get around those things, and it's working. That's okay. Yeah, that's all good. You'll see that I haven't practiced this at all because I'll say something completely different. Anyway, yeah. So welcome. Um, maybe welcome. All right, fantastic. Yeah, we'll just go right ahead. Welcome. Thank you all for coming. I'm Beck. This is Jess and Chloe. We are the former leads of Nova Rover, and our team, Nova Rover, is an engineering team based at Monash University. We're made up of 100 undergrad students, mostly from engineering, also from science, IT, commerce, design backgrounds. So we are multidisciplinary, and our goal is to create planetary rovers which have the aim of going to competitions around the world. These are our rovers that you've never seen before, and they have lovely names based off Australian animals. And we started with a group of just 4 students. They created this first little rover on the left that was for part of their course at Monash Uni, and they decided we work so well together, we want to do something more. And they found the University Rover Challenge, an international competition that they wanted to compete at. So that has spurred the creation of the next 5 rovers, which have grown in size and complexity. And our team has grown alongside those rovers to be at 100 students. Yeah. So going on to our challenges, what do we build these rovers for? We have 2 fairly similar competitions. The first is the Australian Rover Challenge. This one was actually started by 2 of our alumni, which is pretty exciting. They started it back in 2021. It is held at around Adelaide, and it's held basically to simulate the lunar environment. And it sees 8 maximum. We've had the most we've had is 8 teams compete at this competition, and the rover has to do 4 tasks based on a lunar landing. So the first task, it has to find its way around the area and sort of see if there's anything going on with the moon. That's probably my phone because no one's fixing it. Classic. Yeah, it's pink. Thanks. Yes, that's my brother who would have no idea I'm doing this tonight. Anyway, feed the dog probably was what he wanted to know. Yeah, so yeah, we had these 4 tasks. One of them is about looking around the lunar surface to see if there's anything going on, and they will use the robotic arm that we have to service equipment. Then we have an autonomous task where we have to path plan and find our way over the obstacles on the lunar surface. We have a scientific task based on finding and extracting water off of the lunar surface. And finally, a construction task all about setting up that lunar base, where we have to excavate regolith and clear debris and things like that, and create a road on the terrain. Yeah. So the other competition is the University Rover Challenge, which is the international one. It sees 100 teams enter each year, and the top 36 teams are invited to go. So we are the sole Australian team to ever make it into the finals, and we have been quite a few times, and we have made the podium the past 2 years in a row, which is really exciting. So held our ground at 2nd place, which is a huge testament to the team, and it's a huge process to go to this competition. So we took 30 students, around 30 both years, and we stay out in a very rural little town. We put all of our stuff, our rover, into suitcases, get it over there, put it back together, spend 4 or 5 sleepless days of testing non-stop, and we take it to the competition and hope for the best. And so we have this highly trained group that are the operators on the day and in charge of all these little bits and pieces with the rover. And again, there's 4 tasks at this competition. This one is a Mars-based competition, so there's slightly different objectives. For example, the science task is based on looking for life in samples, and that changes the whole way that we make up that payload. Then there is some other more extreme challenges, of course, we are in this amazing desert environment over there, the Mars Desert Research Station. And one of the tasks we have to cover a kilometre radius of ground. So we have to go over this rough terrain, make sure that our radio signals and comms stay working the whole time, and yeah, really push the limits of our rover to get up really steep terrain, pick up heavy objects, and simulate, helping astronauts that are stranded over there. So it's a bit of fun. Yeah. We are also very privileged in our team to have had amazing connections with the space sector on many occasions. So the Australian Space Agency has been a great support to us, and also we have partnered with Gilmore Space in their trip to NASA, where we went to Kennedy Space Center to test the geomechanics of our rover in their lunar regolith test bin, which is where the Apollo astronauts trained for moonwalking. So that was super surreal. That's some dusty photos of it there. We've also been to 2 other NASA sites, namely the Jet Propulsion Lab in California, where we saw the Optimism rover, which is the clone of Perseverance, and we also got to see the Viper rover at Ames. So we have had these really amazing collaborative experiences, and it just opens our eyes up as students to what is out there in other countries, and really inspires us to go, if we are on the world stage and second best in the world as this, small group of Aussies, then what can we do in Australia to build up the space sector, because we are at the forefront of it already. Yeah. Beautiful. Some formatting issues, but anyway, we have also, at the heart of our team is the spirit and camaraderie. We are all about having a bit of fun, and it's all about the individual's growth. So the rover's performance is not the main goal. It is all about everyone coming out of the team with new skills, with new friends, and with a newfound confidence and passion for the space and STEM industries. So we essentially focus on that, and focus on how can we make things a bit more fun, and how can we build up and create a bigger team. We've actually just taken on 47 new recruits to our team last week, so we've got a lot of work to do in the next months. Yeah. Beautiful. I will hand over to Jess.
Thanks, Beck. Hi, everyone. I'm Jess. I'm just going to give a little brief overview of the internal makeup of our team, what it kind of looks like day to day when we're working on the rover, and a little bit about our actual rover systems. So hopefully it'll just be like a brief overview of our most recent rover that we've been developing from mid-2022 for competition at ARC and URC in 2023. And so that's our pink rover Waratah. So firstly, within the team, we are made up of a few different sub-teams. So we have 5 technical sub-teams and 1 non-technical sub-team. So we've got our business and media team who do all of our social media, and they get sponsors for us, which is super important when when we need to build this rover. We actually need to be able to pay for it. So that's they do a great job with that. And then we have 5 technical sub-teams. So obviously the rover is a very complicated system. It's made up of a lot of different subsystems and subcomponents. So we break that up into different sub-teams and have specialized groups of people working on the different subsystems. So we have the electrical team, software and autonomous, and the chassis team working on sort of the core rover systems, getting the rover to actually drive and the core components that we need for every single task that we compete in. And then we also have a few payload teams. So the robotic arm team, the science team, also the autonomous team, they work really, on the specialized payloads that we need for certain tasks. So yeah, I'll go into a little bit more technical detail. So firstly, of our core rover systems. One of our main goals for the 2022-2023 design cycle was really just to innovate and come up with crazy new ideas and see what we could do, because we performed very well in the 2022 competition, coming second, but we didn't want to be, complacent with what we designed. I mean, the rover that we took to URC in 2022 was by far the most technically complex thing we've made, but we didn't want to let that stop us from, I guess, trying new things. So we pretty much entirely overhauled the core rover systems. We made a new chassis body, new suspension. We went from a 6-wheeled skid skid steering system to 4-wheel pivot steering, which basically gave the rover a lot greater maneuverability and also reduced turning scrub that we had a lot of issues with in our previous design. We also switched from brushed motors to brushless motors, and we had members in the team developing custom brushless motor drivers for this as well. And yeah, that we really saw the rover, I guess, go to a higher level with that. We were basically able to traverse a lot more difficult terrain than we were able to do previously. To accommodate this, we made a new LiPo battery unit. We had new, bigger, wider wheels for increased traction, and with an internal bike spoke geometry that you can see there, basically to reduce the weight. So a lot of the requirements for the rover design are centered around weight and also cost. So we have to adhere to a strict monetary budget, but also weight budget. So to do that, yeah, we really try and optimize on weight. And for cost, we make a lot of our components in-house. So yeah, we have a huge number of people in the team trained up to use CNCs, manual machines like lathes and mills, and yeah, basically manufacture all of our parts ourselves where we can. In terms of the core electrical system, it's a modular backplane system. So we have daughter boards, which we call Nova cards, that can plug in and plug out of the backplane, and a custom Jetson carrier board as well for our Jetson TX2, which is the brains of the rover. So yeah, basically everything that we have on the rover also has to be controlled from a remote base station. So everything's done via radio communications. And yeah, I guess this kind of leads in to the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is our payloads. So that was our core rover systems that basically feature in every task. Now we've got a few payloads that we sort of switch in and switch out on the rover. So firstly is our robotic arm. So this is a 6 degree of freedom robotic arm, which features 6 custom cycloidal gearboxes. One of the big focuses of the arm is the operability. So as you can probably see in the background, and as Beck kind of touched on, some of the tasks we have to compete in, we need to be able to basically interact with this equipment servicing module. So flicking switches, pulling out drawers, moving joysticks, taking out a USB and inserting it in a tiny USB slot. And all of this is very difficult when you're doing it with a robotic arm and only with, you know, what you're getting from the onboard cameras on the rover. So you can see a picture over there of the base station. Basically, the operators have to rely entirely on the feedback that's coming from the cameras or the motor controllers to sort of know what's going on. So that's a big part of what we do, is operator training and getting people trained up to actually, I guess, compete in the competitions. I guess some of the things I haven't touched on, we use brushed motors for the arm, but we're hoping this year to sort of revamp and like start again, make an entirely new arm, again using brushless motors and custom motor drivers. And we have custom magnetic encoders for velocity control and absolute encoders for position control. So that allows us to use inverse kinematics, which makes it super much more intuitive for operators to actually control this thing by telling it to go forwards, left, and right, rather than having to control every single joint individually, which from experience I can say is very not intuitive at all. Yeah, next slide. So the next payloads we have are the science payloads. So we have 2 science payloads, one for the Australian Rover Challenge and one for the University Rover Challenge. So as Beck mentioned, they're 2 very different tasks. At URC, we're looking at life detection. So you can see one of our URC payloads down there. It's basically got a platform that can lower to the ground, has a microscope on it for looking at rocks. It has metal scoops that can extract samples from the different sites, and these samples can basically get pumped through a custom peristaltic pump system and delivered to a spectral carousel, which has a bunch of chemical assays in it for analysis. On the ARC side, we're looking for water detection and extraction. So in this challenge, we are going to the different sample sites using an auger drill to excavate small samples and basically depositing those samples into small kilns, heating them up, looking for the greatest mass change and identifying which sample has the highest water concentration. And then we can go ahead and excavate more from that sample site and try and get as much water out as possible, basically. Yeah, next slide. And finally, we have our autonomous package. So again, two slightly different tasks in the ARC and the URC competitions. So for ARC, the rover basically has to autonomously investigate a previously unseen area. So it has to go out and basically identify AR tags, colored bricks, random terrain features, and then determine the location of these features, and it has to do that entirely autonomously. Whereas for URC, it's a bit different. We are navigating to set GPS coordinates. Some of the GPS coordinates they give us slightly off. They try and throw us off a bit because we're actually trying to navigate to some AR tags. So it's basically navigating to a GPS coordinate and then trying to find the AR tag in the vicinity and get within a certain distance of those tags. So for this, we use differential GPS, but this year we actually use 2 differential GPSs, which means we not only get centimetre accurate positioning, but we also get a very accurate heading and pitch for the rover as well. Yeah, that's all from me. I'll pass over to Chloe.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, so you might have been thinking, love the pink, but why the pink? But there's actually a very strong intentional reason why we decided to paint our rover pink, and that was to start conversations about women in STEM. It's that pairing with pink and engineering, which is sort of a contrast in stereotypes that sort of makes you think a little bit, hopefully, about the industry and sort of the perceptions around STEM and how that's actually affecting our workforces. So these are the scary statistics that you might or might not already know, but 36% of enrollments into STEM degrees are women, and 14% of our workforce in engineering are women as well. So the underrepresentation and lack of relatable role models affects students and workforces in STEM. What we want to try to do is attract women to STEM, but also retain them. This is a barrier that socially positions STEM to be perceived by some young women as intimidating and alien. But it's not to me, and it's definitely not to us. There is a stark contrast between the societal cues that are provided to young boys and young girls. According to the Australian Department of Education, girls are directed to teaching, nursing and beauty, boys engineering, information technology and science. So this is a reflection of the gender coding that permeates our society and negative stereotypes that serve to discourage women into STEM. Now, given this correlation between early attitudes towards careers and subsequent career choices, we absolutely must give young women the equal opportunity to discover and learn STEM. Cool. However, for the women and girls who do make it into STEM and break through all of these barriers and bias, they face a lot of discrimination and gendered expectations, which can make it difficult for them to succeed and stay in STEM. So the STEM workforce is losing talent. We are currently not accessing our full STEM potential around the world and Australia. So it's so important that we create inclusive and equitable environments that give everyone a sense of belonging and welcoming. Cool. So thank you for the clap. These are the 3 missions. So this is what our team is doing. So first, empowering through education. We have a wealth of knowledge and we're really passionate about starting the next generation workforce, and that's our team going through university, creating these amazing rovers, and then going out into the space industry and creating a strong, sustainable domestic industry in Australia. But we're also, part of this pipeline, and we think about the people coming before us.
So we've created a plethora of outreach programs that target different demographics and ages. So we have tailored some of our outreach programs specifically for women in STEM. So we provide those women role models running those classes, and sometimes we have all girl classes, and we have seen the difference in participation. So that's empowering through education. Every chance that you get to give an equal opportunity for another girl to discover STEM is what we're trying to do. Second is bringing visibility and fostering engagement. There's a lot of talented women in STEM, and I think we need to be seeing them more. I like to say that we need more STEM celebrities. Like, I love Doja Cat and Ariana Grande, but what about Catherine Bonnell Pegg and Pamela Melroy? So we try to highlight the talented women in our team. We've got 30% women. We had 50% of our technical leads were women as well. And just trying to push out photos of our women actually doing engineering, actually doing hands-on work. As you can see, our electrical lead, 4 a.m. at night before the day of the competition, fixing our science payload. And then we foster engagement as well through events. We had a 300-person event for our launch night to launch the first conversation around Pink Rover and Women in STEM. And we also had our Women in STEM panel night where we invited 11 women from the industry to talk about their experiences and also their experts. And we learnt really cool stuff about space and robotics. And our third mission is addressing barriers and bias in STEM. It does start with an individual level and reflecting and understanding your own unconscious biases. I have internalized misogyny and I have toxic masculinity, but I think it's addressing them, being aware of them, and how, the adversities people have around you so we can all be inclusive and equitable. This is the impact so far. We have, reached over 2,000 kids. We've met with a lot of government officials. We've talked with a lot of businesses, and we've really amplified the conversation in our community. So I guess today is just another one of those events. I encourage you guys to talk about Pink Rover in your workplace with your friends and family, and hopefully we can raise awareness and get that 14 up to 50 one day, soon, next year. Counting on you. Well, thank you so much for listening to our talk. Keep up with us on social media. We're definitely doing a lot of stuff this year. We've got our new leadership team, and they're taking the team to new heights. Thank you for listening.
We've probably got time for a couple of questions.
It's essentially okay, I'm not going to be doing a very good job of explaining this, but the internals of the motor are different when you compare brushed and brushless. And basically with brushless, you get increased efficiency, better torque to weight ratio. Yeah. It's better, yeah.
So that was BP1 simulant, and it's a mechanical simulant, and they actually got it from some mining site. So I think there's only like one sort of, like, you can't make it again. It was like the byproduct of some mining operation. But yeah, it's a well known and used mechanical simulant, and you can test the geomechanical properties. But then there are also different simulants that are like chemical, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, we are at a university, and that's tricky. But yeah, we have been reached out to by a few companies to make commercial products for them. And yeah, it's just the stepping stone of, do we want to branch off and make a little Nova startup that can do that quite freely with full autonomy? Or do we try to go through this university system? So the university has great programs. One of the things that we do, all of us as undergrads at Monash, you get your honours year in engineering, and in that honours year you have to do a final year project, which some of us are suffering through right now. So lots of the work where you can do a research project, and a lot of team members have done that project with Nova to do something related to our rover that may end up on the rover too, and it's also viable research that is useful in the industry. So there are certainly avenues, but it's the I guess how do we want to go about it is sort of the question at the moment. And for now, building up these undergrads to finish their degree and go into companies like Lunar Outpost, building that lunar rover, or going to various companies that everyone here is all pretty much everyone here has a part-time job in an engineering company. So there's all those skills being brought into the industry from the students. But this is a safe place to play and to throw money at brushless motors and go, whoops, that didn't work. We'll try something else next year. So it's a little bit lower risk than a startup, which is where it has its sort of beauty, I think. Yeah.
So we have small rainbow robotic rover kits, and they come like disassembled. And so you do the mechanical assembly, and then you have like a breadboard, which I feel like is like the first thing you kind of want to be introduced to if you want to do electrical engineering or mechatronics. And then we have like a bit of a wired diagram with an Arduino, and we wire it up. And then once they've finished building that, they can put it down. And the kids love this, and they race their rovers, and they try and make it heavier so it goes faster, or put rubber bands on their wheels so it got better traction. But yeah, and I think that's really a great introduction to engineering. And that's what we want.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that. That was amazing. Round of applause. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you. Just give us 1 second to swap laptops. All right. Okay, I should probably turn this camera around a bit. Okay, all right. Next up, we have Preetham Alkula. And you seem, I was saying before, he seems to be doing a bit of everything at the moment. So I've been doing a little bit of work with Esper, and Esper are doing a bit of work with Alkula. And anyway, I'm not going to tell your story. You'll do your story. So round of applause, please.
Hello, everyone. Like Ray introduced, my name is Preetham Akula. And first of all, thank you for inviting me for this talk. This is actually first time I'm doing this in Australia. I've done talks like this in India, in Middle East, and few in Europe as well. But this is the first time I'm doing something in Australia. Unfortunately, it's went the other way around. Okay. About me, yeah. Let me start by introducing again myself. As you know, I'm Preetham, and I'm the CEO and founder of the company Akula Tech. And this is not my first company. I've had. Oh yeah, okay. I've been used to that. The ones that come with the earphones. So this is not my first company actually. I've had some experience running some companies before. I've run company in. I've helped build companies in food and beverage industry, clothing industry, education, something to do with STEM, more specifically. And space technology, of course, the one I'm running now. And I've got another one that does green energy based technologies as well. So I've had a experience of running these companies, I'd say, and it's been up and down journey, and I loved it so far. And that has built a passion in me for technologies that can impact our lives positively. So that's kind of what I've identified as my my passion and the love what I want to do. I'm also an aerospace engineering student at RMIT University. I've been a student for past 5 years. I've taken a break in between to build all my business experience. I'm still a student, so hopefully I'll graduate soon and I can call myself a graduated engineer. So yeah, that's a bit about myself. Um, those are my companies that I've built. Akula Tech is the one that I'm going to talk about today. The next one is Akula Energy, which is the green energy, hence the green color. Sciencebox is a STEM-based education company. So one of our goals is actually to improve involvement of women in STEM, and more even into research and PhD level of STEM education as well. Dropout Chaiwala is a food and beverage company. We've brought in the famous Indian chai into Melbourne. We've kind of disrupted the coffee world that Melbourne is known for, and we've been going well so far, about 2.5 years. We're just based in CBD here, so if you ever drop by, remember I've built that. And then got something called Dropout Designs. It's a clothing company. My family roots come from clothing industry, so I'm trying to carry on that legacy by running a clothing industry. I'm unfortunately not wearing any of our clothes now. Bit of a poor preparation for this event, but yeah, do check it out if you get time. It's quite suitable for Melbourne kind of area, the clothing and stuff. So yeah, that's about me. And so I'm going to be talking today a bit away from the technology. I'm going to be talking a bit more about my experience. I'm going to be sharing my journey so far on how to build a venture. I would term it as it's a journey from research. It's a research to product journey. So that's what I see a company, a startup as. And to give a bit more, to give a bit more easier understanding, I'm going to use my own startup Akula Tech as an example to give you the understanding of this journey and my experience in that journey. So first, let me start with research. So like I've told, it's a journey, research to production. Research, I believe, is a foundation for any technological venture, and in fact, any venture in general as well, not just technology. What happens as a part of research, or at least what did I do as a part of research while starting my company? The first point of the spark of inspiration, I can say, this is where the whole idea was born. I was just sitting one day in my university lab, just about here down the street, and thought, okay, what am I doing? What should I be doing? And then that's where the spark of inspiration came from. And of course, spark of inspiration was not enough. I wanted to just arrive at a point where I know what I want to do. I know I wanted to build something. I wanted to build a startup or a company or something, but I had to identify a problem first or an opportunity first to build that. Of course, like the speakers just before mentioned, if it's a student team, it's much easier. I've got experience working in student teams. I was a founding team member of the RMIT rover team, which unfortunately is not doing good. Not a very brag of myself, but I was also part of Hive team, which is actually a very good team from RMIT, which launched a rocket. So I understand the difference between working in a student group where there's freedom of experimentation and no fear of failure versus working in a startup where I need to address an opportunity, make money, and keep my dream going. So that's where I identified an opportunity in space domain is satellite intelligence. So a lot of people in space industry now are talking about AI in space, AI in other aspects, satellites, usage of satellites for our day-to-day life. But I personally feel, and I've also our market research strongly suggests that the true intelligence in space industry has not been achieved yet, or at least it's still yet to be explored. And when I say intelligence, it's not just running a piece of code in space. We don't want to run a kilobytes, let's say 20 kilobytes of code in space and say we achieved intelligence in space. We actually want to be able to run the intelligence to a level where it can make difference in some of the activities that happen on the earth. Could be some sort of decision making, or it could be some sort of understanding more about the earth, but we want to be able to deliver that full end-to-end intelligence using space. So that's what we as a company, or at least that's what I wanted to do when I started my startup, to deliver the true intelligence using satellites in space. Now, of course, followed by is exploration and analysis. I've tried exploring a lot of companies that does stuff. I can list at least 50 companies that does different activities in space. Some of them are just there on the on the wall if you want to have a look. So I've researched. I've looked into what are they doing, what is their pain point, or what is the problem that they are addressing, and what's after that, or what's before that. Where did they come from? What's the story of their company? And then I try to analyze. Okay, where is this problem stemming from? Who's having this problem, or how are they addressing the problem? and is it solved, or is it just partly solved, or is there more to it, or is there a better way of doing it? So that's the kind of analysis I've done. And unfortunately, I had to do it alone because I didn't have a co-founder, or I didn't have someone working with me at that point. And but I tried to look at it from different perspectives. I tried to put myself into different shoes and understand from a client perspective, from a researcher perspective, from a startup founder perspective, and above all, I try to understand from a common community member perspective. Why does it matter to me? If I'm supposed to think as a common man, why what how does the work that these companies do, of the 50 plus companies, matter to me? So these are the kind of exploration and analysis I try to do of the current market. And I've also dived a bit deep into the research as well. I try to understand what research exists out there. And to my surprise, Australian research in space domain ranks top 3 in the world. The research that comes out of Australia in space domain is top 3 in the world. A lot of missions that NASA runs right now, a lot of payloads that NASA develops are based out of the research done by people from CSIRO, people from Monash, people from Melbourne Uni and RMIT. That being said, that it's also the case that Australian space community is not as on par as other countries' space community. We call it emerging, but there's a lot way to go. We can't call ourselves the next NASA. So, of course, it's a honest fact, yeah. So that's basically where I identified the opportunity. So there needs to be something done to get this research out into the market and be able to provide a platform where this research can be commercialized. Like you just asked if there's any commercializable research. Yes, there is a lot, and I wanted to make sure my company is one such a company that can bring this research out into the market and actually put Australia where the other space agencies stand, NASA or ISRO or anything else. Then comes experimentation and prototyping, and this is not experimentation mean working with brushless motors, but this is experimentation with the society, with the community, with the students, with researchers, with investors. So this is more of a sociological and psychological experimentation that I've tried doing, and more of a business model prototyping that I've tried doing, where I try to understand where do I start, with what do I start, and what do I pitch to people, how do I convey my idea to people? Today, I've got a company, so I'm standing here and you guys are listening. But if I don't have a company, you would not. So that's I wanted to understand how do I put my idea to someone, being a no one, because when I stand in front of a, let's say, researcher saying that I want to commercialize the research, or I want to stand in front of an investor and say, okay, this is what I want your money for doing something. I wanted to, I tried prototyping different business pitches, different business models, different communication strategies in order to be able to catch their attention, in order to give life to my thoughts, and also in order to just make something happen. So that's what I did as a part of my research, and that's what laid foundation for my tech venture. I'm not saying this works for everyone, but worked for me. Then comes to important thing as a part of our journey was the questions we asked for ourselves. I believe if you don't question something, it's not complete. If you're not able, if someone's not questioning something, it's not complete. So I follow this thing in my company, and a lot of my team members that are working with me also follow it now after a long time. Is we question everything. We question if something works, we question why it works, and if something doesn't work, we question why it doesn't work. And if we want to do something, we question why we do, and if we don't want to do something, we question why we don't want to do. So questioning has been, it's a culture of my company, I can say. I try and question everything that we do and everything that we come across. So the first few questions that I asked myself, and I asked my team as well, when we are, of course, I've got some team of obviously join me, in the due course. So 3 main questions I want to talk about today here: the who, the what, and the how. The questions seem quite simple, but it took me almost 6 months to answer these 3 questions. So there's definitely a lot more than what it shows here on the screen. The who is basically, who am I doing this for, or who is going to, or who has the problem that I'm trying to address, or who can benefit from the opportunity that I'm trying to address, and what am I doing to address that problem, or what am I doing to grab that opportunity, and how am I going to do it? How am I going to put my solution out there that will grab the opportunity? So these are the 3 main questions that I asked myself, and like I told, it took me 6 months to answer these, and I've answered them wrong. And it took me another 6 months to realize I've answered them wrong and come onto the right path. But that's startup journey for you. So again, like I told, who is the problem for? What is our solution? What is our solution for that problem? And how will we make money from that? So the who, when I answered, gave me customers. So those are the people that face this problem, and those are the people who are our customers. So to give you a bit of an example, I'm going to dive a little bit again technical here, just to establish some context. But we as a company, what we do essentially is we build satellite intelligence systems, and these systems are fast, able to process data in space, and also real time. So that's what we build. Now, when we try to answer the question who, one area that we identified who is going to benefit or who is this problem for is emergency management and military and national security. So if we remember the recent incidents that happened in US with the wildfire, and of course Australia has always had a history of wildfires, that could be one of the use case, or that could be one of the who will be benefited or who has this problem right now, where of course this is another place I think Australia has to work on. Is right now the only way that bushfires are reported is by physical presence there and by someone looking at it and calling up emergency and saying, hey guys, there's a fire out there. So that's how the bushfires are first identified right now in Australia. And surprisingly, that is how the wildfires are also identified in US. So there's no one actually predicting or observing or trying to detect anything in real time, or there's no one actually being able to do it at this point. And of course, if you know US Department of Defense has something secretive about it, then I'm not aware of it, but the public information says that's how it's done. So that's how we identified our customers. Our customers for satellite intelligence is emergencies, emergency responders, government that manages these emergencies, and also national security and military implications. Being able to secure your geography, secure your borders. So we had a recent interesting conversation with National Security Agency of India. Um, Many of you, I don't know if anyone has watched here, but there's a famous Indian movie which basically shows how Indian military was able to identify some terrorist groups in Pakistan and just blast them off. They used a technology which is basically what we're building, and they just imaginated it. You know how, like Interstellar, Christopher Nolan said this is how black hole might look like, and then the telescope, James Webb telescope, has shown yes, that is a black hole. So we're trying to realize that kind of a figment of imagination to a reality. We're building that system which can actually identify such establishments, locate them, characterize them, and assist the military in actually taking an action on them. So we're just trying to realize a figment of someone's imagination into a reality, and that's what we're building. So that's how we identified our customers. Okay, these are our customers. These are the people that have the problem. These are the people that have a problem of lack of intelligence, lack of reliable, actionable insights, and lack of faster data. So today, if you see any constellation provider, any satellite provider in the market, takes at least 24 or if not 48 hours to provide data to the end user. And by then, I think in these kind of circumstances, half of, if I'm talking about a wildfire, at least half of the target area of half of the danger zone is burnt off in that 48 hours. So there's no point in giving you that data, and you don't want to study something that's already happened and then just tell them that this is how it happened. You want to prevent it, or you want to take an action right there while it's happening to ensure it's not causing lives. It's not making, it's not making people lose their lives. So that's what we are trying to do here. And that's how we identified our customers, the who, and of course the what. Our product is a constellation service that we are offering to our customers, and we're building this constellation in such a way that it could be deployed just on a web app. So I can sit here if I mean, I wouldn't be doing this, I swear, but if I want to, I can sit here and scan some enemy territory and give you the locations of foreign military establishments. Or I can sit here, I can open up the web app, observe for Australian bushfires. Let's say if there's some problem happening in Sydney, I can open up the data cube that looks at the Sydney map, and I can tell you what's going on there, or what I can even at some point I can even tell you if there's going to be a bushfire there. So that's how we are developing the product. That's how accessible we are trying to make it, and from military perspective as well, we are trying to deploy it in such a way that you can hook the whole system onto a caravan on the back of a military car and drive it anywhere in the forward post, because military wouldn't have the flexibility to open up a laptop in a battlefield. So that's what we're building particularly for them as well. So that's how we're building the products. So once we identified the who, once we know what is their problem, and that's how we're tailor making our products for the who, which is our customers. Now, how we make money is our business model. So like I've explained, we have web app based interface, which we charge the customers quarterly based for the target area that they want to observe using our constellation. And that's how we built a business model around it. All of this took me 5 minutes to make and 1.5 years to realize. And let's not forget one of the important contribution and one of the important factors of my success so far, my team. I always like saying this, I'm the most dumbest person in my company, and I'm proud of it because I've built the team that is very, very intelligent than anyone else, I believe. So I like to say great businesses are built by great teams. Great ideas come from individuals, but great ideas are converted to businesses by great teams. So I like to tag my team as well, although they're not here. They might be watching it later on YouTube, so I don't want them to, feel like I didn't thank them. But yeah, I want to thank my team heartfully, not just for the sake of doing it. I want to thank them heartfully for joining me. Like I told, I didn't have anyone in the beginning, but now I have a suit of talents that are, at ready to go. I feel like they are my military army or something like that. So it doesn't mean I'm keeping them like that. So yeah, of course, a pro tip: if someone's looking to build the company, first build a team. Then I want to talk about transition to product. So this is the research we did. These are the questions we asked. Now we need to bring this out into the market. I'll tell you one experience I had when I was talking to, in an early stage, when I was talking to one of who we thought is our potential client. I was sitting in front of the representative from that organization, redacted, and I realized I've done everything wrong, which is the point of that 6 months I've told you, which took me to answer the questions. After sitting in front of them, I've realized everything is wrong. They don't need that, or they don't need this. They don't need it in this way. They want it in some other way. Maybe the problem is right. Maybe my solution is right, but the way I'm giving the product to them is wrong. So that's when it made me realize that transitioning an idea into research, research into product is key. Research is something that is abundance of knowledge. Research is, I call it research is an ocean. Like I can show you here. Research is an ocean of knowledge. You can do 100 number of things from single research paper. That's how all the PhD students are working hard. All my team is PhD students, so I want to give a shout out to the PhDs. They're working hard on giving that knowledge, but all of that knowledge needs to be transitioned in a right way into a product. And how do we do it? There's a process that I have observed, or the process that I have deduced from my learnings and from my experiences that work for me. So I think this is not something that I'm saying works, but this worked for me. So first thing I did after research, first thing I did after identifying the problem, after identifying what to do, we prototyped. And like I told in the beginning, prototype is not working with brushless motors, but we prototype business products, business models. We tried these prototypes with various clients. We went to who we thought is our client. We presented this kind of a product model, this kind of a product. We realized it didn't work. We came back, we did the work again, we changed the way we pitched the product. We changed the product completely, actually, at some point. And then we presented to the client. At some point, it did work. So prototyping is a big part of realizing all of that knowledge into a reality. Then comes the risk management and market fit. You've noticed I've highlighted that in the red because that's what I'm going to emphasize on after the slides. But risk management and market fit is, I'd like to call it as a maker or killer of your product. You either make your product best in this part, in this phase, or you either kill your product. So that's why I've highlighted red, because it's a danger zone, and it's also a very important part of your whole journey from or at least it has been an important part of our journey from realizing research into a product and then taking it into the market. We'll get to it in a bit. It needs a lot more specific emphasis. But then after that comes validation, which we've been doing all along the way, but validation with the customers, validation with diversified customers is also something that we've been trying to focus on, and I believe which works most of the cases is because we want to be able to diversify our customer groups eventually. We don't want to be saturating our customers. As a company, we don't want to be in a point where, okay, we've made $1 million and that's all we can make. So we want to be diversifying our customer pool. We want to be diversifying our clients that we want to work with. So diversified customer validation is something that as of now, we're going through as well, and we've been doing for a while now. And then comes your product. That's when your product is actually liked by the customers. That's when you get paid for. And that's when you get making money. And that's when we started making money. That's when we had our first client, Esper. Like Ray mentioned, we have a first client from Australia itself. Thanks to Australia again. I've roamed the whole, all the buzz cities of space, and then I found client in my home. So Yeah, so that's how we realized we took our product to the first client, and that's how they're paying us $500,000. Of course, it's a subsidized cost. I'm not selling satellites for $500,000. Coming back to the part that I've left out in red, and I've emphasized on that, risk management. You see an interesting shape there. I've picked that just to make it easy to understand. It doesn't mean that there's something mathematical coming up. So I'd like to say on the left-hand side, where the under-managed risk equal to underdeveloped products, what I would like to convey here is when you don't manage the risk properly, your products are not developed. I mean, they'll definitely understand if you don't manage the risk of failure properly, your rover will not work on the side when you go there. So managing the risk, under managing the risk will eventually lead to underdeveloped products, which might not work for every customer. Might work for one, might work for two, the third one will fail. So that's what the problem comes when you under manage the risk. And when you over manage it, your products become obsolete. You'll never be able to get the product out in the market because there are too many constraints, there are too many restrictions, there are too many obstacles that you need to address before getting the product out. You'll never be able to get it out in time, or by the time you get the product out, someone might have done something better than that in particular area, and then your product is not required in the market. So that's what happens when you over manage the risk. And when you optimally manage the risk, that's when market ready products come out, like our company. A bit of a marketing shout out there. But yeah, so okay, I believe this is something that common knowledge. Most of you might know it in a different way, or most of you are feeling like, okay, I know this. But how do we actually know that if we are over managing or under managing or optimally managing the risk? That's the question I ask myself. Okay, I know I should not over manage. I know I should not under manage. But how do I know that I'm not doing it? Or how do I know that I'm optimally managing it? So that's when I did a bit of an MBA, short term, 6 weeks MBA, kind of. So I learned business on street, so I can call that. I went out and tried to, a lot of people again published a lot of researches on risk management, business management, and stuff. I tried to study what exists out there, and I tried to talk to people who've done this before, especially in space industry, because it's a bit of a different scenario in space when it comes to risk and all that. So I realized there's one simple solution to all of this. You don't have to go worrying about crazy different strategies and stuff. There's one simple solution to efficiently know if what are you doing is correct or not. And that is basically quantitative risk management. In any way or form that works for you, in any simplest method that works for you, convert the risks, the impact of the risks into numbers. Just assign some numbering and convert into numbers and put it as numbers. Because I think this is something that most of astrophysicists agree with, but human brain is biologically formed to conceive numbers faster than anything else. If I show you a number, you'll be able to grab that much faster into your brain than a word or than anything else, than a shape. So numbers are something that will give you some sense of confidence in yourself to understand. Okay, I'll give you a small example. When we were looking into a small product, which is basically like a ADCS system for satellites. ADCS is attitude determination control system. So we were looking into which vendor to go with, and that's a huge risk associated product or a component. An ADCS failure will result in the failure of whole satellite. And then we wanted to understand how will this risk tie into the whole satellite. So what we tried to do there is assign numbers based on its impact or based on its cost of failure. So if ADCS fails, mission fails, so that's number 10. If, let's say, I've got another component, for example, I have a redundant flight computer in one of my satellites. If a redundant flight computer fails, I might lose 200,000-300,000 I invested on that, but the mission still runs. So that sits at the bottom, number 2 maybe, because there's still money losing there. So that's how we came up with a simple quantification model. Cost of failure will rank the number we give to that risk higher, and that's how we came up with a simple. We're not using any complex systems in our company for building the satellites that we build. We're using basic system. If it fails the mission, it's number 10. If it doesn't, it's number 2 or 3. That's how we quantified the risk, and that's how we made sure we are actually understanding if we are under managing or over managing or optimally managing the risks. So I would say it's a, again, coming back to a bit of a cliche statement, it's not rocket science. Okay, it is rocket science, yes, but it's not rocket science to manage risk in rocket science. Then comes the product market fit. This is something I haven't touched on until quite late in my journey. I think most of the startup founders have this problem. They get lost in their thoughts, like I did, and I feel like my product fits into the market. I feel like there's nothing else that can beat my product. But then when I go into the market, I realize I'm wrong. I've just been living in a imaginative world. And that's what happened in previous example I've given you when I sat with the customer, where they told me that they don't need my product. That's when I realized product market fit is important. Without that, I built even, let's say, a mission that converts water to gold. Unless you need gold, it doesn't work, or it doesn't go into the market. So although the technology might be unique and technology might be great behind it, and that's one of the reasons why a lot of researchers in space technology or in any other complicated technologies are sitting in research papers in Australia and not coming out into the market. Because the product market fit is something that is very tough to identify, especially for specialized technologies like space, like green energy. It might be easier in the other domains like consumer goods and stuff like that, but when it comes to specialized technologies, it's quite hard to identify. And that's because your customers are not putting up a flag in public and saying, I'm your customer. If I open up my coffee shop, the tea shop, I know who's my customer because they look at the shop and they walk in. But if I open up a space company, I don't know who's my customer. One of you sitting here could be my customer eventually. So that's where your product market fit is tough, and at the same time, it's more critical as well. And the cost of failure is higher in space. The cost of failure is higher in green energy. So your product market fit is very much more important in these ventures. So what is product market fit? I've used Venn diagrams here because these are the ones I understood from, easily understood when I was trying to explain to myself. So there's a pool of customer needs that exist in the market, and then there's your product, which is your, with all the value proposition that your product comes from. The market fit is the overlap between the customer needs and the value proposition. That's basically product market fit in simple terms. Your product, the value proposition that your product offers, has to address customer needs. And the larger the area overlaps, the better your product is going to succeed in the market. And surprisingly, this is something that I've come across. We contracted actually a market research company and paid them roughly $50,000 to understand that 60% of products in space technology right now in the market don't have that overlap. 60% of the products in the market, 60% of startups in the market are just trying to push it using some sort of grants or some sort of, a larger vision business model and stuff, but they don't have that. They don't have the overlap of customer needs and their product value proposition. So where we come from, we try to address that. We wanted to have that overlap. We wanted to make sure that our product value proposition is actually needed in the market. We need something to tackle these natural calamities. We need something to tackle military incursions. We sat down with the people who are the first responders, who have directly seen the fire 100 meters away from them or 150 meters away from them, and tried to ask them, what do you think works? What do you think, or what's your need? And surprisingly, one answer they gave me is when they go fight a fire, they don't know what they're fighting. They don't know at all what they're fighting. They don't know if the fire is natural, if there's a chemical accident in the fire, or if it's going faster, if it's going slower, if there's wind coming up, if that wind is going to blow in their direction or opposite direction. They're literally going blind. And they asked us if you can give us some insight about, okay, is that a chemical accelerated fire? Or is that a natural fire, from eucalyptus oil or something? Is there a wind blowing in that region? If we are able to give them that information, it might save some lives. It might make them more confident to enter into that area. And most of the times, it actually makes a lot of difference, being able to know what you're fighting. So that's where we identified the customer needs. That's where we identified our value proposition. And I'd like to say my overlap, overlap for my company is pretty great. If not, they're just completely subset of each other. Then actually, how do we identify product market fit? So I want to talk about a bit of a strategy here as well, which is not mine, which I just got from my studies that I did to identify what to do here. There's 6 ways or 6 steps that you need, that I did essentially, and everyone else probably needs to go through in order to identify this product market fit. The first one is establish the product goals. Product goals are something that are very important in the life cycle of building a product, because your business goal might be to make you a millionaire, but your product goal has to be to address someone's problem. Like my business goal is to make me a millionaire. I'm not gonna lie about it. I love money, but my product goal is to help someone out there who's fighting these kind of situations, or who needs these kind of intelligence. So that's where identifying the product goals is very important. And then product hypothesis. You know, I would like to call it as a product story. Every product has a story. There's no product today that we see came out into the market without a story. So building that product story is very important, and that story comprises of your opportunity, your problem, your customer, your solution, your technology, your risks, your impact, and also your businesses, finances. So that is what we need to build, product hypothesis. Then we need to be building development prioritization. You know, I my vision is to build a satellite constellation that I can access from my phone, but we prioritize to build it in such a way that I can access from a web app first. So prioritizing what development we do first is very important. And I'm sure again the people from Monash Nova Rover will resonate with me, because there's a lot of ideas that will be on the table. You know, a lot of people come with a lot of imagination, ideas, creativity, but prioritizing what we build first and will that going to fit into the market or not is quite important. This is where me and my CTO fight a lot, because I call him up after, like, 10 a.m. or so 10 p.m. or 11 p.m. after a couple of drinks and tell him, okay, I want a lunar outpost. Why don't we build a lunar outpost? If it's money, then we'll bring it. Why don't we build a Martian rover? When Chandrayaan 3 landed, I called him up and told, why can't we launch a Chandrayaan? Why can't we launch something that to land there? So that's when the development prioritization comes into picture. What do you prioritize? What can go into the market? We are not NASA with people's money to do whatever we want. Of course, they're not doing whatever they want, but there's a standard process there. But we are a company that needs to make money to survive, and that needs to make money to long. So what do we prioritize in development process to bring it into the market? Then comes the customer feedback. This is something I have again noticed in a lot of startup founders, is they don't talk to their customers until they have a pretty product out. They feel like they want to show a pretty or good looking product out in the market before even talking to the customers. But I did that mistake. I have waited a long time before talking to my customers, and I would say that's a mistake, because I've seen the cost of that mistake. We need to talk to the customers early in the stage, even maybe at an ideation stage. We need to ensure that we are actually going to have that customer when the product is ready. We don't want to build something based on our imagination, thinking that this is going to work for the customer. Then we realize it's not going to work. It's going to hurt a lot when that does happen. So I'd say, although it's counterintuitive to startup founders, I've seen a lot of startup founders think, I want to talk to the customer only when I can show them something good, show them something aesthetically pleasing. But no, in an industry where someone pays you a couple of $1 million for a piece of hardware, aesthetically pleasing is a secondary choice, or is a secondary priority. Although I don't mean to undermine the statement that they have given before, but when it comes to, of course, I agree with the point that sponsor us as a sponsor. If I sponsor the Nova Rover team, I would like the rover to be nice. But from a company perspective, aesthetically pleasing is something that people put on 2 or number 3 in the list. And then first comes, is it actually addressing their problem? So that's why we need to be talking to our customers. And turns out most of the times the customers we talk to initially will become our first customers. Esper was the first ever company I spoke to when I started my company. That's the first ever company I spoke to understand if this problem exists in the market, and they are our first customer. When I spoke back then when I spoke to them, I didn't even realize they could be our customers. But they are our first customers. They are the ones who paid us the first money. So talking to the customers is very important for confidence building in a new company, for the customer to understand that you're actually doing the right things, and to trust in the company because we're new. Second thing is also important to make sure we're not wasting money. Then comes MVPs. I have this nice quotation which I'm going to put on my Instagram soon. At an early stage, take big risk with small money. And when you become $1 million company, or at a stage where you're lavish, take big risk with small amount of money. That's what what I try to do here is MVP, minimum viable product. I think the name suggests itself, but I'd like to play small bets first. I'd like to roll out small products into the market, or small propositions into the market, which can actually give me a pathway to build towards the big goals that I want to do. I do want to land the rover on moon. It's not just a drunk thought I got. I do want to land, but before that I want to launch few satellites, bet on it, build towards that, and then land the rover on the moon. So that's basically what I realized, is it's always good to build small, build fast, fail fast, learn fast, and keep going. So that's a strategy I think will work. Doesn't matter which kind of industry we are in. It worked with my food and beverage as well. We started small with a 50 square meter store, and today I have like 4 stores, each roughly about 250 square meters, and I own 2 of them. So we start small, we build small, we build fast. We even if we break fast, we learn fast, and then we go forward in the process. So that's why I say start with small bets, or at least I'd like to start with small bets, and then comes measuring market traction. Measuring market traction is as simple as seeing how many people liked your LinkedIn post. You know, LinkedIn post is something that you're just putting out to say that you're doing this. In the same way, being able to understand how many people liked your pitch is measuring traction, for an early stage company at least. I mean, I don't have product in the market which has like, thousands of users which can measure my traction. I have a product that only one or two groups from a nation uses. But being able to understand how is it going to relate to the stakeholders, and if they are liking it, if they are resonating with the product, is my market traction. And especially in deep tech companies, I believe that's what is going to happen. Deep tech companies don't have hundreds and thousands of customers, unless if you're building an AI app that competes with Facebook, like Threads. But most of the deep tech companies, especially that work with hardware, don't have hundreds of customers. So at that point, your market traction is the satisfaction of your stakeholders, is the resonance of your stakeholders, and your stakeholders involves your customers, your community in which that deep tech is going to play a role, your industry that you're going to impact with that deep tech, anything that comes after that. So understanding their feelings about your product, understanding their resonance with your product, and being able to understand if they do like it or not at a very minimum. That's what I see as a measurement of my market traction. It's a very interesting story I'd like to quote here. I was in a meeting with National Security Agency of India again last month, where I was sitting with a brigadier general who's almost equivalent to like a very high ranked army officer who might have been in a war or something like that. I've pitched him for about 35 minutes, the longest pitch I've ever done for my product, for my company. After 35 minutes of my pitch, he asked me one question: do you like your product? He asked me if I like my product. And I told, yes, I like my product because I'm building it. If I don't like it, you're not going to buy it. Then he asked me, okay, what made you like your product? I told, I like my product because apart from the fact that I'm building it, I like my product because it's going to change how people, how people live, or try to throw all the buzzwords around, saying that, it impacts life, it impacts security, it gives confidence to Indian people that their borders are secure and everything. But the brigadier told me he's going to give me a contract just only because of the reason that I like the work that I did with the product, not because of all the buzzwords that I put around. So being able to resonate that with the customer, being able to make your customer or make your client like your product because of the work that went into the product is very important, as much as its use cases are. Because even if the use cases are important and doable, that brigadier could have gone to his team or anyone in the Indian space ecosystem and asked to build a system like this because they've got money. They could have asked anyone else to build a system that I've just pitched him without signing an NDA, and he's legally allowed to do that. But he did put money in me. He did trust me because I like the work that I do, and he likes the work that I do. So I think that is very important, to be able to resonate with the customer or a client. So all right, that's basically the important part of my presentation. Yes, I've realized. Yes. So cold pizza. So okay, I'm gonna wrap up on one note. Entrepreneurship is, let's say, deep tech entrepreneurship is at least not something that one size fits all. Everyone's journey is unique, everyone's challenges are unique, everyone's experiences are unique. All we can do is learn from what people like me tell. Might be, you know just learn and just take some notes, or if not just remember, or if not just spend some time and eat some pizza. But learn from people, learn from what people like me tell on these kind of platforms, and try to use that knowledge to face your own challenges in your unique way. And I want to end on a note: don't be afraid or don't be hesitant to do something different. Even if I'm saying that this is how it works, don't be afraid to do something different to this. That's how I want to end my talk today. Thank you for the time, and yeah, I'll take some questions now.
Thank you for the talk. I just have one quick question. AI on satellites with for national security sounds like very risky ethical minefield. Have you planned for any of that? Yeah.
That's a great question. AI in general is also, not just for national security, but for any application. AI poses a lot of ethical ambiguity in the market at this point. I'm going to answer a bit technically to you. Yes, exactly. So basically, this is more of a problem from the client's perspective as well. So when they're investing, or when our client is investing into AI for national security, we have something, we it's a joint effort. So we and the client work together in order to put framework, that's human-centered framework, in place that can actually, I wouldn't call assess, but that can actually understand what AI is outputting, or that can actually give a green tick to what AI is saying, if it's good or not, if it's bad, or if it's ethical or not. And that's what we call human in the loop process. So we're not doing human on the loop where you just fire up something and you expect the whole thing to run by itself, or we are not, at least in the area where human involvement is completely minimized. We're doing something, we run the project and we run our software codes, or we run our entire architecture using human in the loop approach, where there's a human checkpoint at every, or at a reasonable stages, or at reasonable platforms, which basically ensures all of this ambiguity around ethical practices, around reliability of information from AI for national security, and also accuracy of this information, and also any vulnerabilities on this infrastructure is actually monitored by humans. So that's what we call human in the loop system. With India, that's what we're implementing. So I'd like to say, as a part of our work with what we're trying to do with India, we're also starting a new initiative in India, which basically targets ethical, or which basically works for ethical practices in AI, which starts from this project. So this is going to be like a birthplace for that committee in the government, which we are, training the initial sort of people, and we are trying to establish that framework. And again, one more place where things might get a bit more sociologically impacted. But yeah, that's basically what our approach is, using a human in the loop process for ensuring there is a human involvement, and ensuring it's not left to AI completely. And again, as one more thing I want to emphasize is, AI is a tool. AI is not everything. AI is not something that can take over the world. It will never, trust me. AI is a tool, and a tool in wrong hands can be dangerous, but a tool in right hands can also be useful. So as long as we're looking at AI as a tool and ensuring these kind of human in the loop processes are there to check what's going on, and to ensure reliability is high and ethical practices are maintained, I think we'll be good. I hope that answers your question.
I think any maybe we'll wrap it. We'll wrap it up there. Thanks a lot, Pritham. Thank you. All right, that's it. We're done. And thank you, everyone, for coming. There'll be another event in another 4 weeks. I don't know exactly. It's the second Tuesday of the month. I can't remember exactly what date that's going to be. But we currently have we have a couple of speakers lined up for that one, for one slot. And I think we've still got availability for another slot, Sally? Yeah, so if you know anyone, and it's probably going to be a bit medtech or biotech focused. So, it'd be interesting to see if, we can rustle up someone else in the next couple of weeks. Oh yeah. Okay. Well, just send them our way. We'll talk offline. We'll finish up here. I think we have to be out of here in the next few minutes, but we can pop round the corner to Saint and Rouge, the pub round the corner, if we want to sort of keep arguing about military ethical concerns. All right. Okay. Thanks, everyone. See you later.